The universe hasn't been the same since the 14th Doctor cast salt at the edge of it in Wild Blue Yonder. Superstitions and myths have become real. People are breaking the fourth wall, and things have turned more supernatural and fantastical. It's all part of Russell T Davies's new bold vision for Doctor Who, and we're seeing it play out one step at a time. The Toymaker warned us in The Giggle that his legions were coming, and his warning came to fruition when piano teacher and composer Timothy Drake played the Devil's Chord and summoned Maestro. But who exactly is Maestro, and could they return in the future? Let's recap what we know and find out, shall we? Ever since Jinx Monsoon was announced to be playing a villain in the new series of Doctor Who, fans have been trying to guess who she'd be playing, and naturally the usual suspects came up, because no one will really believe Russell T Davies' claims that there'll be no returning villains in Season 1 until the credits roll on Empire of Death. With the Master being trapped in the Toymaker's tooth, and Maestro being Italian for Master, many believed Jinx Monsoon would be playing a new incarnation of the Master, but that turned out to just be a coincidence. Maestro is a new addition to the Doctor's Rogue Gallery, with a familial link to the Toymaker, which made for an excellent callback as Maestro emerged from the piano, cackling the giggle. Revealed to be the Toymaker's daughter, they're one of the so-called gods of chaos, part of the Pantheon, and they have the ability to control and consume music, growing more powerful from every song left unsung. So, defeating the Toymaker was only the start of the Doctor's problems. As they admitted they should be thankful to the Doctor for trapping him, I assume the Toymaker would have stopped Maestro from destroying all life in the universe, as that wouldn't have been in his best interests. After all, without people to play his games, how else would he spend eternity? But with him imprisoned, Maestro was able to run amok, free to do whatever the hell they liked. Once they'd grown strong enough to devour the music of the spheres, they would have had no need for people, as they could sit back and listen to Aeolian tones, surrounded by the chaos and destruction of a nuclear winter. After all his adventures through time and space, the Doctor's rulebook has been thrown out the window, as casting salt at the edge of the universe has made everything possible. It's interesting to see the Doctor out of his depth, having to learn how to defeat powerful godlike beings like Maestro. It's unusual to see the Doctor as terrified as he was when he recognised the giggle, and it makes the bi-generation feel like it had genuine consequences, as the Doctor got lucky by winning a game of catch, but it tore his soul in half, and he's not sure if he could survive that again. Besides, you only get one trick once, so to defeat Maestro, he had to play the lost chord. He tried to find the right notes, but failed at the final hurdle. With him and Ruby trapped inside musical instruments, all would have been lost if it hadn't been for John Lennon and Paul McCartney finding the piano and playing the chord. Although Maestro was defeated, it wasn't a guaranteed victory. Although he had a part to play in their defeat, the Doctor would have been helpless to stop them if John and Paul hadn't been in the right place at the right time. Most Doctor Who villains tend to be one-and-done deals with no future, but Maestro is one of the exceptions. They were banished, not killed, so they're still out there, waiting for revenge, and all it will take is that one person to free them. If Maestro is part of the same Pantheon as the Trickster, then they'll find another way into the universe, people to exploit, and the Doctor will need another trick up his sleeve to stop them. Not everyone will like Maestro, it's down to your personal taste, but either way I see them as a positive step forward when it comes to refreshing the Doctor's Rogue Gallery. Not every villain can be as iconic or successful, but some can stand the test of time to become fan favourites and regular adversaries. However, they can't afford to rest on their laurels and keep going back to the well of Daleks, Cybermen and Masters. They've got to experiment, take risks, make mistakes, see what works and doesn't work to find the villains of tomorrow who can be added to the roster. Perhaps Maestro wouldn't work as a recurring foe. Maybe they'd be better off being a one-and-done deal, but you know what? At least the Devil's Chord left them with enough potential to return if it was called for. This doesn't happen all that much in Doctor Who, but Maestro's return has already been teased in the Devil's Chord. While the Doctor and Ruby were celebrating the return of music with the song There's Always a Twist at the End, they were unaware of Maestro's son, Henry Arbinger, who reappeared in Emmy recording studios after he was apparently removed from existence. Clearly, something happened before or after Maestro was banished. So is Henry part of their backup plan, or was he brought back to serve someone else in the Pantheon, like the one who waits, who appears to be the oldest and most powerful of them all? Most people would assume Henry, as their harbinger, would be there to set up Maestro's return, and that's what would make him a good red herring to throw us off the scent. Until it's proven otherwise, I'm not going to rule out that theory just yet. I've got no doubt in my mind that Russell T Davies would invite Jinx Monsoon back in a heartbeat, and he has actually teased that this might not be the last we've seen of Maestro, but if he was to bring them back, how would he do the same, but different? He's already established that you can't use the same trick twice, so before he even considers bringing Maestro back, he should ask the following questions. Is Maestro's return justified? Did they rely on shock factor? Have they got another story in them? Every time you bring a villain back, you're playing with fire, as you risk damaging their reputation if you make the wrong choices at the worst possible time, like Moffat did with the Weeping Angels. The good thing about Maestro is they're unpredictable, and they have the ability to evolve. Daleks want to be the supreme beings in the universe. Cybermen want to convert everyone into them. Centaurans live for war. They've got one unchanging motive, whereas Maestro could go in 1,000 different directions from here while staying true to who they inherently are. In the Devil's Chord, they had this authoritarian grip, claiming music was theirs and killing anyone who dared to play a decent tune, because the more songs left unsung, the more powerful they became. I was surprised that this was Maestro's whole deal, as I thought they were going to be the perfect excuse for Russell T Davies to tick a musical episode of Doctor Who off his list, but he decided to take a different approach for the Devil's Chord, which didn't work quite as well as I think he thought it would. There's been a lot of criticism about the dance number at the end, with people saying it feels sudden and out of place, but I can understand the intention. It's supposed to be a celebration of music returning to normal after decades of Maestro's interference, but if you're going to have people singing and dancing in Doctor Who, don't do a half-hearted attempt. Commit to actually doing a fully fledged musical episode. I've got to admit, I'm on the fence when it comes to a musical episode of Doctor Who, as it's all going to come down to the execution of the idea and whether it's justified by the story. Personally, I think it would be the perfect direction to take Maestro if they returned, because it would subvert our expectations by doing the opposite of what they did last time, like Terminator Judgment Day, where the T-800 protects John instead of trying to kill him. I've heard a few ideas thrown around over the past couple of weeks, but I like the sound of Maestro returning and forcing the world to become one big Broadway production, One Division style. It would be a completely different tone to the Devil's Chord, a psychological horror where every waking hour is a living hell for people as they're forced to sing and dance to stay alive. Imagine the lyric, "I think this song will never end," sung by someone who can't afford to stop. That's how Doctor Who should tackle a musical episode, by doing what it does best, taking the ordinary and making it terrifying. Maestro should come back fighting, raising the stakes as they use music to hold the entire population hostage. They're powerful enough to adapt their plans, up their game, and be even more of a challenge next time. And that's what excites me most about a villain like Maestro, the capacity for change. You don't have to do the same thing time and time again. Everyone's going to have their own thoughts about whether or not Maestro should return, because they were always going to be a controversial addition to the Doctor's Rogue Gallery. Doctor Who has always been a progressive show that constantly reinvents itself, and now it's experimenting more with fantasy and the supernatural, introducing new, bold concepts into the Whoniverse that aren't strictly sci-fi. Change doesn't come easy to anyone, and this new approach won't be for everyone. And that's absolutely fine. For every devil's chord, there's a boom. There's always something to like in Doctor Who, because it changes every week from one adventure to the next. Despite that though, Doctor Who has always struggled to update its roster of recurring foes, so we need new original villains like Maestro to come along and do a trial run. Russell T Davies has expanded the Whoniverse already by redefining what Doctor Who can be, and this new era is the perfect opportunity to test the waters, innovate, and see what sticks. I would rather see Doctor Who try and fail doing something new rather than relying on the tried and tested monsters of the past, because at least they could say they tried, it didn't work, on to the next one. Maestro represents this spark of creativity, this forward momentum, pushing Doctor Who into the future by experimenting with what does and doesn't work, and that's what the show desperately needs. Villains with the potential to become regular adversaries. Give the big three a rest for a while, offer the spotlight to someone else, and see if they've got what it takes to be tomorrow's villain. If at first they don't succeed, keep trying, because we need villains like Maestro to keep things fresh. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on future videos, and it'll help me out with the algorithm. As a content creator, any support you give is greatly appreciated, but if you'd like to support the channel further, check out my Patreon and Ko-fi page for early access, shoutouts, and more. Links in the description below. Until next time, goodbye.